welcome to Project Recovery, a podcast about addiction. More importantly, it's about recovery. And it's brought to you by our friends at Reprieve Recovery. It's an all-female facility up in Morgan, Utah. For more information, go check them out, reprieverc.com. And they can help you out and help you on your road to recovery. I'm Casey Scott. That's Dr. Matt Woolley. The team is back together.
Hey, buddy.
So you did solo last week.
Solo. Well, Josh, he got me through it.
A little Q&A with Joshy.
Yep.
Joshy's a good third man.
He is.
He's a handsome guy, and he's the guy that really puts all the work into this podcast.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
I mean, we show up with really little to no prep.
Right.
And then he tapes it. And
I brought paperwork last time. I was prepped. I
saw that.
Yeah, I prepped.
You had notes.
But that's like 1 in 400 episodes.
And you've got some papers in front of you right now, and we maybe get to them, but I want to tell you a little something about the lovely Leslie.
Yes.
She's my girlfriend.
Yes. Well, she nowadays, in the vernacular of today, they'd say she's your life partner.
Yeah. And
you guys live together.
Yep. And we've talked about that.
Right.
Like her kids call me stepdad because it's just easier to explain
Makes more sense
to their friends.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I go, do you want me to call you your partner? She's like, well, we're not in business together. You know what I mean?
But that nowadays, that's the lingo.
Yeah. And so.
And what is cohabitation until you're legally married?
7 years.
7. How many years you got under your belt?
We've been together 6.
But living together is the cohabitation.
About a year and a half.
All right. So you got a little time.
But we also are not right now commingling money.
Okay.
And I think
a lot of married couples don't do that either.
There was a lot of fights with me and my ex-wife about that. Like when I got divorced, I was in a sea of nothingness because I didn't know where I didn't know where my money was. I mean, I had no idea. All I knew when I was married is that I had a debit card and it was good to go.
Hopefully.
You know what I mean? Other than that, she paid all the bills. Yeah. And so when I got divorced, and that was another
some couples do it though.
That was another stressor in my life. I was like, I don't
figure out how to do the money.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
But then I don't think that's a good plan, but some couples do it that way.
Before my ex-wife, I used to wait until the bills came a different color. Yeah. Like if they start out white,
then you're good.
You're good.
Yeah.
And if they come in pink, that's like, hey, did you forget to pay
probably
this?
Should open that one.
If it comes in yellow, they're not happy, man.
Yeah, lock the door.
So whenever you got a yellow one, you had to pay that one.
You can't leave the house, otherwise they'll. Yeah.
And surprisingly, going to rehab's not good for your credit.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
But now my credit score is pretty good, and I got my first credit card.
Nice.
At 50.
You've never had a credit card?
Never had a credit card.
Really?
Never had a credit card.
Just rocking the debit card all these years.
Yeah. You want to know why I got a credit card?
Yeah.
On the way to the Dominican Republic, we're at the airport, and I told everyone to pack light. Everybody showed up with way too much stuff.
Way too much, yep.
And so we had to do a lot of checked bags.
Oh.
And so at one point, the guy leans over to me and goes, you're at $360 in checked bags. He goes, but I can get it for you for free.
Oh, you
goes, all you have to do is
Delta credit card.
Get a Delta American Express card. I go,
yeah,
done.
I got one of those.
Yep. Yeah. So I got one, and so that saved me. I still have a zero balance. Have never used it, but
that's another way to build credit.
Yeah. So I've got a credit card now.
Well, you know what you ought to do is, you ought to get married in August. We could do a double wedding.
Ooh.
What do you think?
I'll DJ yours, you'll DJ mine.
Yes. I bet everyone would love my DJ choices.
Nothing but punk.
All right.
Yeah. So lovely Leslie just recently had an elective surgery.
True.
Okay.
That's why we missed you last week.
And I'm not going to tell you what it was because it's not my story to tell.
You did send us all a video, but yeah.
Yeah, but that's just because you guys are in the friend group.
Right.
But we're there, and we're checking in, and she's going to the doctor, and the doctor's a fan of the show. And
oh, really?
So he's talking about that. We're talking about my recovery, and then he goes to her, and then she goes into surgery. She comes home, and she's like, hey, that was messed up. And I was like, what was messed up? She
goes, the pre-interview?
Yeah, she goes, I'm getting ready to go into surgery, and you and doctor are sharing war stories. And I got 10 seconds with him. She's very happy with the outcome now, but she was like,
she was like, hey, this is about me.
Yeah, this is not about
not
you
about
two
you,
idiots.
Casey.
But what was interesting is
only
that
Casey makes his girlfriend's surgery about him.
The interesting thing is that, while they're doing that, I'm talking to another nurse, and she's getting ready to go under, and they give me prescriptions to go get filled for her.
Yeah.
So when she comes out, we can give her the prescription medicine.
Right.
And I hear the nurse goes, does that make you nervous? And my girlfriend's like, what? Well, that he's going to go get those prescription pills.
She said that before your girlfriend went under?
Well, no, because I think she heard us talking about recovery and wondered if pills was my thing.
I mean, you don't say that before a person's going under.
Well, but my girlfriend goes, no, I've never ever questioned his sobriety.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
You know, and I remember one time we went to San Diego, and this was maybe 3 months out of rehab. Mm-hmm. And everybody in the group was nervous because I had just gotten out of rehab, and these guys were going down to have a good time. They were nervous if I was going to come and be a wet blanket
I remember this
a wet
trip,
blanket on the party, or if I was going to all of a sudden let loose and relapse and just turn this into a Casey show. And I remember sitting there on the beach talking to Leslie, and I go, "What was your backup plan?" And she goes, "I didn't have one." She goes, "I've never questioned your sobriety." And
even back then, huh?
Even back then, it's a cool feeling.
Yeah.
Like, she questions whether I'm going to mow the lawn. She questions if I'm going to start the dishwasher.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
She questions if I'm going to pay the bills. Yep. But she's never questioned my sobriety because I think she knows how serious I am. And it's always been a source of pride for me to know that she goes, "No, you got this."
So what effect does that have on you, do you think?
I think it gives me confidence.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, here's somebody who believes in me. Because I think as an addict...
100% support.
100% support. As an addict, and I've gone on this roller coaster with my family, my ex-wife, and everybody along, I've made promises. I've not followed through on those promises. I've broke many promises. As a matter of fact, I broke about every promise I ever made during those times. You know what I mean?
Goes, yeah.
And so then people go, and then as an addict, come back and go, "But this time I mean it." Mm-hmm. And how does that person go, "Okay, but you said that last time."
Right.
And you didn't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I think there's always some question in the back of their mind, which it should rightfully be. Yeah. You know what I mean? You can't tell them every time that this is the time you mean it and not have them question it a little bit, right?
For sure.
You know, but to have somebody who's never had a wavering doubt about my sobriety has really been a source of strength for me. I mean, because I know without a doubt that I could look back to her and she'd be like, "You got this."
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is a cool feeling.
It's a cool feeling, but my mind goes to like, well, what emotional effect does that have on a person? You know, like, how does that change how you see the world? Because you guys are partners. Mm-hmm. You know, you are, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, and you share things. So with that type of intimate relationship, how does that affect a person? I think you said it well. It gives you confidence, makes you feel, supported.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I just did another podcast with Frank and Jess. They used to be on a morning show here in Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
And we were talking about my roller coaster of a ride and everything that I had to go through to get where I'm at. And they asked me a question like, "Well, how are you doing today?" And I go, "I never thought I'd be able to say this, but I am way better of a person today than I've ever been in my life. And I owe a lot of that to everybody who came along with me on this journey. And I have let people down, and that breaks my heart. But hopefully I don't let somebody else down again. But chances are I will, you know what I mean? Because I'm human.
But maybe for different reasons.
For different reasons. But I'm getting to that point in my journey where, looking back, I am thankful for the trials and tribulations that I had to go to get here today.
Yeah.
I think I'm a more loving, caring, empathetic person than I've ever been. And if it wasn't for the rock bottoms, the highs and the lows, I wouldn't understand it.
Well, I think we make this mistake as people in our culture nowadays, that we can learn everything we need to know just by reading or talking, But the truth is, a lot of what we learn is still through our experience.
Yeah.
Right? And so you can look at those setbacks as failures, or you can look at them as disappointments, but learning opportunities, right? Mm-hmm. And some of them are big. I mean, we've had a lot of big ones shared on this show, and you've had a lot of big ones, and we all have had our mistakes. But you have to accept the fact that I think still the vast majority of the way we become tempered into the people we want to be when we get older is because we've learned from mistakes and tried to become better people. So.
Resistance promotes growth.
I love it.
Another thing I want to talk to before we get to our guest is I was talking to somebody earlier this week about a loved one who is going into recovery.
Okay.
And the description they used describing this person was, they're not a typical addict. And at that point, I stopped the conversation. I go, you've got to get over this thought of what a typical addict is.
Right.
That's the whole
stereotype.
Reason we're doing
that's
this.
What we talked about last week.
That's what we're doing this whole podcast on, is there's no such thing as a typical addict. Every addict is...
There's a stereotype.
Yeah.
And we're trying to overcome that.
But that was one of those things with me when I sat down in the rooms and that I was
like, I don't belong here.
Yeah, I'm not one of you guys because I don't feel like I was the typical addict. But now I know an addict is just an addict.
Yeah, and it looks. There are similarities, but it looks different for everybody. Right? Yeah. The drug of choice is different. The reasons are different. The journey is different, and the recovery is different.
And that's what's so beautiful about recovery. And Utah has one of the most beautiful recovery scenes in the country.
It is dynamic here.
It is amazing.
And how many people have we had on the show that had their addiction outside of Utah? Came here for recovery centers and stayed.
Multiple.
Many.
Dozens.
Yeah.
We've got a guy here today. His name is Richie Wilson, and he is a superstar. You are. I've had people mention your name over and over again when it comes to the recovery community. Richie, how long have you been sober?
Just over 4 years. April of 2020 was my sobriety date.
How long have you been in and out of rooms, treatment centers here in the state of Utah?
Since 2006.
2006.
Yep. First time I tried to get sober was September 2006.
And now he's running things and helping out over at FDR because our friend Ian left.
One of my favorite places.
And it's where I was introduced to him when I was in rehab. And they have the most beautiful, vibrant community there. Whether you're into the arts, working out, culinary, just want a good place to hang, or if you're looking for a community, I always suggest to people, if they're in the Salt Lake area or anywhere surrounding, go check out FDR because everybody is welcome there.
Yeah, we have stuff going all day, Monday to Sunday. We run 131 classes per week, and it's just a place where people can come and hang out and find like-minded people. There's literally something there for everyone. It's a lot of people think because of Fit to Recover, it's just exercise, but we have dance night, art night. There's just something there for everybody. Even if you just need a safe place to come and hang out, that's what.
And I've noticed there's a lot of service projects going on with you guys.
Yeah, service is really like my favorite pillar. Just because you see folks be able to show up and go, and we're right there in the ballpark area, and there's so much necessity. And so our monthly service projects get a ton of people coming out, and yeah, it's just a beautiful thing.
They've got a 5K coming up in a couple of weeks, and we'll give you information about how you can get involved in that in just a little bit. But coming up, we're going to listen to Richie's story and find out where he got his start into the road to recovery. You're listening to Project Recovery. Stick around. Welcome back to Project Recovery. I'm Casey Scott. That's Dr. Matt Woolley. Our guest today is Richie Wilson. Do you like Richie?
Yeah, that's what I've always gone by. Mom called me that since I was a pup, so Richie sticks.
I like it. Yeah. And you said you started your journey into recovery in 2006, but where does the story of Richie really begin?
Long before that. So I'm the fifth of six kids. I have an amazing family. Was born here in Salt Lake City. We moved to Seattle, Washington when I was about 5 years old, and I feel like my younger years in Seattle were just magic. You know, you had the Supersonics, Seattle Mariners, family was thriving, doing good. And then when I was 12, we moved back here to Utah.
Now, for a lot of people, that happens.
Yeah.
But Dr. Matt will tell you, moving at 12 and 13 is traumatic.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I moved when I was a little bit younger than that from California to Utah. And that's a time when you're starting adolescence, your social life becomes really important. You're starting to develop that sense of identity. Who am I? And then all of a sudden you're moved to a new place. It can be really rough for people. How was it for you?
Yeah, it was a tough time. Like looking back in hindsight, I mean, I kind of planned on staying in Washington forever. You know, I had all my best friend and everything all lined up. And I think the shock really arrived when I got to Utah. And you know, being scared walking through the halls of elementary, junior high, not knowing anybody, there was a culture shock and all those changes that are going on. I will say just like in my youth, you know, I had a super good childhood. I feel like my awareness was heightened though. I shared a room with my 3 older brothers, and so I got to like grow up pretty fast. And so I had just kind of some general awareness, and I think a lot of like fear and insecurity kind of started to settle in when I was a kid. I don't want to say growing up too fast, but just being aware of things that were going on, like financial situation with the family. My older brothers were my idols. I looked up to them, and when we moved back to Utah, they were heading out on missions, fleeing the nest. And so I think a lot of loneliness and fear kind of tapped in.
Sounds like they were part of your security, having them around, and then when they left, that might have made you feel sort of alone or exposed, right?
Abandoned, if you will.
Yeah, abandoned, yeah.
Yeah, most definitely, and family was kind of everything, family was everything that we had, and I just looked up to them and wanted to follow in their footsteps, and, then they're gone doing their thing, and there I am in Utah in junior high trying to figure things out.
Now, you said your brothers were leaving the nest and going on missions, so you grew up in a religious home?
Yeah, super religious home.
Wait, now when you say super religious, I mean, is it I want to see
read scriptures every morning, go to church, all that stuff.
Yeah. Scriptures in morning and night. Family prayer together, dinner together.
I think a lot of people who don't know a lot about the LDS Mormon religion don't understand how it is part of your daily culture.
For sure.
People who really practice it versus a lot of other churches, and just to draw to, different.
They get 1 day a week.
Yeah, it's like we go on Sunday and then we kind of do other things. But it's similar to maybe old school religions like old school Catholicism or Judaism, where it's kind of your daily practice and it's your social life and scouts and you have everything that goes...
Young men,
everything that goes with it. Yeah. And so when he says super religious, that's probably what comes to mind is that was kind of our day in, day out, right?
Exactly. Yeah, our faith was, it was everything. It was a lot of our identity, and I feel like there was a shift in that faith because growing up in Seattle and being a Latter-day Saint, you don't have to go out and tell people about that. It's just what you practice, and you kind of get to stand for something with that. And then moving to Utah, there was a lot more gray area. It's kind of like, what grade of LDS are you? Where do you fall on the spectrum? And I think I was really sensitive to some of that pressure moving back here. And I'm also very grateful for the values my parents instilled.
Even growing up in this state, I was privy to know that, California Mormons were not like Utah Mormons or, you know what I mean, or New York Mormons. And so, and I often told people like that, I was like, being a Catholic in Boston is, pretty common, what I mean? But being a Catholic out here, you know what I mean? It's not your complete identity, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
But, for the Mormons that is, and all of a sudden you come to the Mecca, the motherland, if you will.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, you got to identify yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when did you feel like when was your first introduction into alcohol or drugs?
Well, really just junior high. I want to just kind of speak about my feelings in junior high. I really always tell people that my first drug of choice came from just that feeling of restless, irritable, and discontent. And I walked around with that kind of like a hornet's nest, in my diaphragm, junior high years, lots of anxiety, depression, not feeling like I was good enough. Just having some body image issues too as a kid, and some of the pressures with sports and stuff like that. And
you wouldn't be surprised to hear this, but maybe our listeners would. But there are so many people who have sat down in that chair where you're sitting right there who talked about having a wonderful childhood and the importance of stressing that I had a wonderful childhood. I want you guys to know that I had a wonderful childhood, but I still had this anxiety, this thing that was sitting in my body that I just didn't feel normal.
Well, a lot of people assume that things like anxiety and depression come from external stressors or a traumatic event, and it certainly can.
Right.
But actually, I would say the vast majority of people who struggle with anxiety or depression, especially as young as elementary, junior high age, that's biological. That's inherited. You bring that with you, and then the experiences you have in life can either make it better or worse, but it's kind of part of your predisposition, just like some people are 6-footers and others are pushing 5 feet. Some people have blue eyes and brown eyes. We inherit tendencies in our mood. And so a lot of people have said man, I didn't know what was going on. Puberty kicked in all of a sudden, just like you described, pit in your stomach, walking around, not feeling very good about myself. And you're not equipped to even understand what's going on with you at that age.
You don't have the language to express what's going on.
You don't have the language. You don't have the experience. You know,
or the confidence to talk to somebody, because chances are at least 3 or 4 people in that group of friends are going through similar things.
So not to get totally off track, but I had a new patient. At the university, I do a lot with older kids and adolescents, and this girl, very bright, very verbal. It's our first visit. And she wanted her dad to come in with her, so her dad was in there. And then she said, she's very cute, and she's almost 11 years old. She says to me at the very end, I said, do you have any other questions or anything about this? And she said, I do. I have another question. And her dad's like, well, we got to go. And I said, no, it's okay. You know what? Let's talk about it. And she said, do other kids have to come in because they have anxiety? I didn't see any other kids in the waiting room, and I wonder if I'm the only kid. Literally, this is what she said, that has to come in and see someone because they have anxiety. And 20 years ago, that would make me feel emotional and sad for her. Now it's just every kid asks that question. And I pulled up on the computer and I showed her, do you see all these doctors right here on this picture? Mm-hmm. And she said, yeah. I said, what does it say above there? And it says, Department of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry. And I said, there's an entire department of doctors and nurses just geared to help you. And she said, really? And so we talked about the fact, and her dad, confirmed that he has anxiety, mom has anxiety, and 3 out of their 4 kids have shown signs of anxiety. So, it's cute that when we're that age, we have so little experience that we think I'm the only one.
Yeah.
But it's also kind of detrimental if you don't have somebody that helps you out with it. And it sounds like, Richie, that was your experience too. It just started kicking in, and I'm wondering, did you know what to do about it? Did anybody reach out and kind of help you with it? Or was it something you just tried to tough it out? Like when Casey and I were kids, you just toughed it out, rubbed dirt on it.
Yeah. Pull yourself up by the bootstraps and wipe your alligator tears up. And I think I just would act out here and there, and some of the ways I would act out was just disappearing from home.
And that's how boys do it at those
100%. Ages. Yeah, not telling the truth. That was really the first way I could change how I felt. I would just lie to my parents about this or that, But as far as like being a kid and having the resources and the help, I mean, this is early 2000s and mental health wasn't talked about.
Yeah.
Even just that recently.
It feels like it was a blink, the last 10 years that we've really made leaps and bounds, maybe even the last 5 because of COVID. Yeah.
So when did you have your first drink?
So my sophomore year in high school, I had about an 18-month span where I broke my foot twice. I had a sinus surgery. I had emergency appendectomy. And then it was like the UEA weekend, and some friends and I went down to Lake Powell. Mm-hmm. And
been there.
Amazing place.
Oh, yeah.
So the very last day I jumped off.
It's an amazing party.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of when I first got introduced to marijuana. Was down there with some friends, and on the last day I jumped off about a 100-foot cliff and I shattered my tailbone. Had a bruise from my calves all the way up to my shoulder blades. It was a super bad injury, and I was away from my family, and I was in the hospital there in Page, Arizona, and I just still remember whatever it was, the morphine, the Demerol. I'm laying on my stomach with a broken butt, and, like wanting my mom as a 16-year-old kid. There's no pulling yourself up by the bootstraps at that point.
Right.
And just the feeling of the opiates that hit at that moment, I had alligator tears come down. It was like a warm blanket, And
I mean, your experience is similar to so many who've been on this podcast before. Yeah. That first time having it. I mean, you said, it felt like a warm blanket.
Yeah. Not to romanticize it, but it just calmed everything,
Well, I think it's interesting you said you wanted your mom.
Yeah.
And so at 16, nobody wants to admit they want their mom. But the reason, I assume, was because your mom represented comfort.
For sure.
But instead of getting mom, you got the drugs. And the drugs provided instantaneous comfort. And that is a powerful association for a person who's not just in physical pain, but in emotional pain, right. Feeling scared and lonely, and then this drug comes in. And so it is, we always talk about the physiology of these drugs and what they do and how they create, more need for themselves in your body, but emotionally too. They're comforting to people in the beginning.
Most of them fulfill a need at first. You know what I mean? I mean that's usually what gets people to go to them in the first part is to fulfill a need.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you got the comfort.
Yeah, well, and you said it too. I mean, the physical pain was gone, but something else was lifted too. And it was all of that. I'll call it the hornet's nest was gone. The hornet's nest was gone, and I felt like everything was going to be okay. And then there was the justification from the doctors. This big thing happened to Richie. All the maybe being the lost child or the black sheep or not getting as much attention. Like this huge event happened, and all of a sudden, I'm getting all this attention. And woe is Richie. The victim card was kind of just playing, and rightfully so. And it really played into, I guess, just wanting to stay attached to opiates. And that was my path in high school. It was kind of just for fun. And I found some friends. I'm sure I've had some friends on this podcast that I shared my opiates with. I've talked to a couple of them, but that was more it, just to be able to have a good time. And outside of that, up at Davis High, where I went to high school, everything was a secret. And I really, really liked having this duality. I played sports. I played football and basketball, and there was a few of us that nobody knew, at least we thought, nobody knew that we were partiers, because we were going to be the stand-up guys, Peter Priesthood. Mm-hmm. But, we had kind of this dark side story and really kind of bonded through that.
Band of brothers.
Didn't see any of the consequences. And I'll say it was fun during that time. And also just kind of bearing that secret just got bigger, as you know, so...
So you'd right after you leave the hospital in Page, Arizona, and you found a new love, and that love is opioids. But you were able to just party with them throughout your high school career while maintaining a rigorous athletic competition.
Yeah.
And living a dual life, as you said. Through any of that time, did any of your secrets spill out? Was there ever whisperings, or did you guys hold it pretty close to the vest?
We held it pretty close. Some things came out after we won the state championship in basketball. Me and another guy on the team got caught smoking marijuana, and it was this big, you guys are banned from school for a week. We're going to, black your pictures out from the state title. And, up in Davis County, it was this big kind of shame thing that was out and about.
And that's a huge deal. I mean, for anybody, especially an athlete like that, you know what I mean? To all of a sudden, to be marred like that and just
did they actually black your pictures out?
No, they didn't do that.
Okay.
But there's we were suspended from school for over a week, and I remember going back to school after that experience and just the eyes, the cat was out of the bag, and it was marijuana, right?
Right.
But that pedestal of being on as an athlete.
And I think that is the old way that teachers, coaches, parents, shame was the tool
for sure
for punishing and trying to reform somebody. We know now that there's a cycle with shame that actually the more you shame a person, the more likely it is they're going to keep engaging in the behavior that's self-destructive. So we know that shame actually has the opposite effect. But I think a lot of us grew up with that, public humiliation as being sort of a tool of reform by people like teachers, parents, and coaches.
But shame was the punishment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And they thought if we shame you enough, you're going to change your behavior. And sometimes people do temporarily. That's part of it. You can look up the shame cycle is a well-researched, documented cycle in people's lives where you get shamed, you feel embarrassed, you kind of pull it together, you stop doing certain things, but then what resonates is I am a bad person and bad people do these things, and those things actually make me feel better, so I'm going to now go back to doing that. Then I get caught again, and then shame happens all over. And so it's this cycle.
Oh, I've been in the cycle.
Yeah.
I'm like feeling it in my bones right now.
I've been on that wheel for a while. You know what I mean? We're talking decades.
So just FYI to anybody who's listening, let's not use shame anymore. But that was up until just recently pretty common practice.
So after high school, what does life look like for Richie?
Again, just trying to follow in my brother's footsteps. I went out to go serve a mission. I went to South Carolina. And I honestly think in hindsight, it was kind of to just experience something new.
Sure.
I wouldn't say I was all in with the church or anything like that. It was to experience something new. There was a mindset to get away. I was using daily marijuana, but the opiates were at bay, and I was kind of using it as, I guess, an enunciation to leave everything behind and see what the world had to offer. It worked out for my brothers, and it was kind of a token of honor in my household, and also expected to. Mm-hmm. So I got called to serve in South Carolina, and the very first day of my mission, I met my trainer. We're on this hillbilly back dirt road and hadn't even gotten to our little cabin yet. And we got T-boned by a Mustang going 75. And I come to, and he's just bleeding on me on my chest, completely unconscious. He gets medevaced. I get taken to another hospital. So split from my companion, super serious car accident. He was bleeding out the back of his head. I had, broken bones and major concussion. And there I was in that hospital again. Just telling people, hey, I'm a Mormon, call my mom, like same exact situation, same exact result.
Opioids again.
While serving. And I think if it would have happened maybe today, I probably would have come home. But we healed up in the mission home, and shout out Elder Curtis, we stuck it out. And but he also, actually, he's a person in recovery now too. I still remember both of us with our pain pills. It was we had flirted with them before our missions, and it was like, as long as we have that, then there we go.
That's our get out of jail free card.
Yeah, and it really just kept the flame lit. It kept the flame lit. That's the best way I can describe it, is like having this thought while out there, like, all right, I want to leave. I'm freaking terrified. I just basically had a near-death experience, but there it was. It showed up again. I'm like, okay, if I've got my companion, we're gonna stay. We'll stay.
So you finished out the mission.
Finished out the mission, and I hesitate to say this, but I truly became an actual functioning addict on my mission. So I left over 200 pounds, playing sports, super healthy. And when I got off the plane, I was about 150 pounds. On the mission, I was using every single day, finding any way to get pills, even to photocopying prescriptions, and using Adderall as well. And just was a sick pup when I got home. I didn't really know what an addict was, but I was sick when I got home. Came home with maybe enough pills for 2 days, just kind of thinking that God owed me one, that he would do me a solid. And shortly after that, that's when I got home, the wheels just really fell off. I was just right down here at Pioneer Park looking for heroin, looking for cocaine, because I couldn't get my prescriptions anymore.
So you jumped pretty quick from prescriptions to street drugs.
Yeah, and it was introduced to me by someone at my work. When I got home, I just was super sick. Couldn't find any oxy, and so it was like, hey, this is the same thing. You don't want to feel like your bones are breaking. Just smoke a little bit of heroin; it'll take the pain away. And at that point, it was, all bets were off. At least for me. I mean, the cat was out of the bag with me. Yeah, and I kind of just was a little bit of a rolling train wreck at that point.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so you end up there. Yeah. And what is your family thinking at this point?
Well, it was just, where's Richie? I wasn't keeping my word. I wasn't showing up. They all kind of knew something was wrong, but I think the mission probably threw him for a little bit of a loop. And
well, you can't be an addict. You just got back from a mission.
Yeah, right. And so shortly after that, I had been gone for a handful of days, and again, I wrecked another car in a blackout, and that's when I really just first asked for help and went to treatment for my first time up in Park City in 2006.
And did you go to that because you asked for help, or did you see it as a way to get you out of the trouble that you were in?
100% to get me out of the trouble. I mean, I didn't know what AA was. I didn't know what recovery was. And to our point earlier, the terminal uniqueness and the victimhood had just really set its hooks in with me. Like, no one's ever experienced this as much as I have. My story is so unique.
I'm a state champion.
I'm a state champ. Yeah.
I'm an LDS member. I just got back from a mission. Yeah. I mean, none of those boxes are right next to Addict.
Right.
You know what I mean?
No, they don't seem to be.
Yeah.
Right. And just thought I was a super special case, And I think that is part of, at least for me, the disease, to make me feel that victimhood and to feel like I'm the only one. I call it terminal uniqueness, because it's just going to get you alone and it's going to get you dead. And that's where I was headed. So
what did you learn in your first rehab?
My first rehab, I treated it a lot like a car wash. I brought that athlete energy, that competitive energy. I memorized the 12 steps. I was up praying every day. I was participating in group. There was probably a whole group of people, they're telling me, giving me the attaboys. If anybody's going to make it, it's going to be you.
Oh, yeah.
because that's what I had done my whole life. Yeah, I'm gonna get a gold star in
Get my
treatment.
second state ring.
And the truth is the truth is that I meant it. You know, I thought that that's what I was going to do. That was part of my character at that point, was to really just exert more will and do my best. You know, I was the first one up running laps. But in hindsight, I was outrunning my recovery. I hadn't taken a look at anything that I wanted to do. I hadn't looked at my causes and conditions for getting sober. And shortly after that treatment, I fell off again. You know, it was kind of the same song, same dance, shaking my head, using again. And ended up moving up to Seattle to go and get some more help. The family's like, yep, the shiny rehabs are off. So go up to Seattle. I went to Addiction Recovery Center. And, you know, that's where some of my roots were. And you had to pee dirty to be able to get a bed, which I thought was pretty awesome. You know,
like I can do
you
that.
can't stay here
if you're clean. If you're dirty, come on in.
Yeah, and I mean, we're hanging clothes and working at the Salvation Army all day. There's no real therapy, and it was kind of like behavior reform, and that was a huge shock. And I also felt some abandonment from my family at that point. But
Did you have much conflict with your family? Were they?
It wasn't conflict. It was just they didn't really know what to do. You know, no one in my family had ever used. They were kind of powerless at that point. My mom had almost loved me to death. You know, bless her heart, she's a queen. I love you, Mom. But you know, she'd lock me out of the house and leave $40 outside and some clean underwear. We still joke about that. You know? Like it took a while to create those boundaries.
That's a classic mom move. We get the money and the clean underwear.
Next time, Mom, just make it 60 and no underwear.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, thank you. But I think there was just love and distance at that point.
Well, and to stick up for your parents, they were doing the best that they could with what they knew. I mean, 100%. There's not a playbook for this. You know what I mean? And so there's so many people that come on this podcast who are loved ones of addicts who don't know what to do. And what they don't want to do is nothing, and not knowing that sometimes doing nothing is better than what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I would say, like, for the better part of a decade after that, I kind of did this song and dance of locking in, doing the program. I could do structure really well. You know, I'd call it just going and getting my 90-day sandwich and a nap, you know, and say some prayers and clean up a little bit. But every time I went into recovery, I meant it. I thought it was going to be what would stick. And I didn't know what I was missing because I didn't know what I was missing. And so I would get sober for 6 months, 9 months. I got a year a couple of times. Changed geographicals. I was looking for external things to make me happy. Get the shiny job, get a new pair of shoes, get a girlfriend, relapse. And I couldn't quite figure out what was holding me back, you know, and I still had this belief, and I hung on to this belief that something was wrong with me.
You were looking for the missing piece.
Looking for the missing piece.
And the missing piece was in you all the time.
Did you feel confused? Because what you're telling us is a little different than what a lot of people say. Mm-hmm. A lot of people will say, well, I know I was going there to avoid problems, and I wasn't, you know, I was just going to work the system. You're kind of telling me, if I understand what you're saying, that you thought you were all in. Like, you're like, no, I'm really going to crush it at this. This is going to be me. It fits my values. I'm going to win at this. Mm-hmm. But you didn't realize you were missing maybe more the insight piece, the therapy piece. Mm-hmm. So when you would relapse, did you feel confused by that?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on with
you? I mean, completely defeated. I even had, told myself that there's a line in the AA Big Book, you know, that says that some people are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. And like, I was like,
that's
all right,
a heavy phrase.
Well, that's me, you know, because I thought something was wrong with me. You know, I thought that I had tried my best and I just couldn't tap in. I couldn't get there. And again, that was a justification keeping me sick.
Yeah.
What you're explaining is kind of what my therapist, Eddie, explained to me. And that's when I was in rehab. He goes, hey, drinking's not your problem. I go, whoa, yeah, I'm pretty sure drinking's my problem. He goes, no, your problems are your problems. And drinking's been your Band-Aid and your solution. It's now become a problem. But that's what it is with you, is that, you know, you're here thinking that it was the drugs and all of that was your problem, but he never did the self-work and never looked internal and said, well, what's in me that I'm making me think that I need this?
Yeah, without question. And I love that you just led into that, because that's where the Band-Aid was and where all the pain was I was always constantly trying to put on and, again, externally make sure everybody think that I was okay, and, you know, that I really labeled myself heavy as an addict. And I thought everybody was just, you know, spending their days thinking about Richie, the drug addict, or the alcoholic. And that just wasn't the case. They just wanted me back. You know,
But that's the maddening thing about an addict is like what Richie's explaining is that he got sober. Yeah. He got a job. He got a girlfriend. He got a new pair of shoes. But Richie still didn't feel good.
Exactly.
And he thought that by doing all these things that would somehow make him feel better. That's not going to make you feel better. Those are just outside things. Those are just...
That's part of our culture, too. Like, everybody's chasing the next big thing. If I have a big house, if I have a big car, even people who aren't addicts are kidding themselves that I'm going to feel better when something happens in my life, as opposed to I can feel better now just right here without any of those things if I know how to do the work. But to your point, that's not inherent knowledge that people have.
They don't teach that.
You have to be taught
at Davis High School.
Nope. Yeah, you got to feel it. And I think about the surrenders. You know, I had surrendered, okay, I can put drugs or alcohol to the side. But truly surrendering myself, my thoughts, my will, my life, my mistakes, my pain, my injuries, like forgiving the doctors. I held on to that for so long, that justification.
You guys did this to me.
Right. And just becoming completely undone with the fact that all of these things have happened and I'm still here, you know? And I got a lot of love from my family because they were the ones that showed up, and I'm super grateful for them because no matter what, like my brother Raleigh,
love him.
He came and showed up 4 years ago. He came out to Colorado to just take me out to lunch. I was living in Colorado, and there I was circling the drain, saying that I was doing good, just smoking a little weed and just drinking. And he just looked into my eyes and he's like, "You're coming with me, man. You're coming back to Utah with me." And it was him, but also his daughters too, that really got me to come back and just feeling that like actual pure love again. And being able to surrender and be around family. Came back to Utah, lived with him for a little bit, cleaned up, and just got back around my family. And that's really what got me locked back in for recovery.
So at that point, do you enter another program, or how many had you been to at this point?
Yeah, I'm not going to say. I mean, we're in the double digits as far as outpatients. Going into treatment.
Programs.
I reached out to a good friend of mine, Brian Heeden, Renaissance Ranch.
Yep, love him. He's been on here.
And he's one of my best friends in this world. And again, Davis High guy. And we both went through Renaissance Ranch. And they made the mistake of giving a lifetime contract for a guy like me. And so I just kept going back over and over and over. And so I reached out to him, and he got me locked in. And then I went out into an outpatient program. And really, I just think having nothing and starting fresh. When I first got sober, I had, the mindset. I didn't have a driver's license at the time. I mean, unemployable for sure. I felt like I had been losing my mind. And so what I needed, and also a shout out to Jared Shaw with Recovery Strong.
Love that guy. He's been on here.
Has he? He put me on the end of a jackhammer in the middle of the summer, just jackhammering holes. I think it was $15 an hour or something like that. But that is exactly what I needed, was just to go, sweat it out, be around some people in recovery. I wasn't the best construction worker, I'll admit that. But having my days filled with being able to sweat and move and make a little bit of money and take care of myself is really kind of what started my recovery this time around.
And so now you're coming up on 4 years, and I wasn't kidding when I started this podcast with saying that you are a rock star in the recovery community, because I hear your name pop up all the time. You're always out and about, and people depend on you, and they can count on you. What does that feel like for you to know that people can depend and count on you?
One of my favorite parts in the 12 and 12, it talks about, where our biggest liabilities become our assets, and all that shame of, man, this is the 9th rehab, this is the this is the that, I'm such a piece, here we are again. It's actually kind of lined up and become the firm bedrock of where I'm at today. All of those relationships that I have today are, from going into treatment, people seeing my potential and then really being able to see me step into it.
Was there a point when either some work you were doing with some, rehab or with a therapist helped you develop this insight? Because it sounds like today, one of the things that you definitely have is personal insight. For sure. You're not that, what'd you call it, terminal uniqueness. We'd probably call it in psychology egocentrism, just thinking I'm unique and special. So when did that shift for you? Because it seems like that's a key.
Yeah, that is a key. I remember going through being in treatment and kind of just going through one of those timelines, and it's like, your time to shine. You get the whole afternoon, you get the whole group, and you're spending days leading up to it just making this huge poster board of your timeline. All of the traumas, the times that you used, relationships, which, I mean, for like a early person in recovery, pretty traumatic, but also just you want to see what it was like.
Major personal inventory.
Exactly.
Like, yeah.
And then you present it to the group. And I remember I presented it to the group, and I'm going through the roller coaster of life was so good, star athlete, then this happened, did really well on the mission, and like just going through the ups and downs. And as I completed it, my therapist was just holding his hand up. And I thought he had a question. And he's holding his hand up like this. And I'm right at the end, and I'm probably rambling on. Everyone's probably just like, shut the heck up, man. And he just keeps holding his hand up and tells me to keep going. And he eventually, I said, do you have a question? He's like, no, I don't. He's like, Richie, I want to tell you something. You're a 5. And I was like, what do you mean? He said, you're a 5. And I'm thinking I'm at least like a 6 or a 7, on a bad day. And
8 if I'm talking to a lady.
And what his point was, he says, you're a 5. And the truth is so is everybody else. Your whole entire life, you've been living as a 1 or you've been living as a 10. Take the pressure off and just know that you're a 5. You're a garden variety addict right here in the middle. And like, I had a spiritual experience that day. And it was kind of like this weight lifted off of the pressure. And then also on the other end of it, dude, you're not as bad as that you think you are.
Yeah.
Just be a 5. Just chop wood, carry water, do the next right thing. And I've carried that with me ever since.
Oh, that's powerful. And it's interesting when I ask somebody a question like that, what they're going to come back with. Yeah. Because really it's your perception that determines your reality. And in that moment, your therapist was able to help you see things differently, right? Your cognition shift, in psychology we'd call that you reframed your perspective on yourself. Yeah. And that's a wonderful thing.
Richie, when I did my story to my group, and I'm not kidding when I say this, I thought when I was done with my story, everyone was going to stand up on an applause and walk me to the front door and say, you don't need to be here.
Yeah, see ya.
You know what happened? This guy told me to shut the F up and don't talk again until I want to be real.
Truth. Yeah, the ego shines when we have the floor. Really
like, here I'm thinking, I'm like, honestly, in my mind, I thought they were going to stand up and be like, oh my God.
We have never heard this wisdom before.
Oh, this is amazing. Here's the front door.
Oh, Captain, my Captain.
And this guy goes, shut the F up. And until you want to be real again, do not try that stuff in this group again. And I was like, and that was one of those moments for me where I went, oh.
Well, and getting your ego called out by someone, and we are egocentric. I'll say I am egocentric, but also very, very sensitive. So you better be careful, right? So you get called out by someone who they've been down the same road as you. It hits different than your mom or your brother.
That's what he told me. He goes, hey, bro, we're all addicts and we're all really good at telling this story. Yeah. So don't try that with us again because you just wasted our time.
Amen.
You know. So what's going on at Fit to Recover these days?
Fit to Recover is shining. I don't want to say it's I think the secret's out. We just moved last year into an 11,000 square foot building. We have a full creative arts space.
You do concerts, you do poetry, you do rap nights.
Yep, rap cypher on Friday nights. Just go to our website and check us out. There's fitness classes for all levels. We also have yoga on Sundays, specialized classes. If you're wanting to even just come down and check it out, your first class is free. We never want money to be an issue. I know that was a big thing for me. I got scholarshiped into the program at Fit to Recover when I was.
If I remember correctly, and I think I do, there's a sliding scale, and you pay what you can, and you know what I mean. You'll get people in there, and that's the thing is, for my understanding, is you never want to turn anyone away.
Yeah, and we're a nonprofit, so we're always looking for donors and people to support what we do. But I tell folks that are just coming out of Renaissance Ranch, I say, just keep showing up. A couple times per week, and when you got a comma in your bank account, then we'll figure something out. But go out there and get after it, and get moving and get healthy. Because I'll say this, FTR really helped unlock me as a person. All of those other things, I was going to meetings, I was doing all the stuff, 90 and 90 and this and that. What I was missing was community. Mm-hmm. And I kind of forgot that moving your body is really a cheat code. For me, when I move my body, it shakes that soul up that has the tendency to wind back up, and get to the spot where I'm starting to, feel the doldrums. I still have, waves of depression that'll come. And it's, I'm not going to say it's cured it, but it's really helped that. And so we don't do any workouts for time or for competition. It's truly like a group workout. You don't have to think about the workout. I know gym culture can be intimidating, but just show up and let us help lead you in.
What's interesting is because I've been to many classes at Fit to Recover. You start in the morning or the workout in a group circle and kind of set your intentions, and then you do your workout, and then you group up again afterwards.
It's a very mindful
what you learned,
way to approach it.
It's cool. You learn a lot about a person you're sweating next to, and you know what I mean. You see people doing things that you wouldn't think they could do, and then that gives you hope, and that gives you fire and all those things. You've got a culinary class, but you've got a 5K coming up, and for the runners in the state, it's a great way to support Fit to Recover. Plus, go out there and put some miles on the shoes.
Yep, June 15th, 8 a.m. We're at 1331 Major Street. The 5K is going to be one of our biggest events. It's one of our biggest fundraisers. Super affordable. If you can't afford to do the 5K, just come, show up, reach out. It's a run for recovery, just to celebrate all the good that's happening in Salt Lake.
Can people donate if they're not going to run?
Yes. Yep. Just go onto the website, click our donate page. We have folks who are donating for other runners and things.
I was just going to say, can they sponsor a runner?
Yes.
Yeah. Cool.
How much does it cost?
$40.
I'm going to sponsor Casey.
No, I'm going to sponsor too.
Okay, you guys sponsor each other and then both show up.
All right.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Do you guys still have the Utah County one too?
Yeah, so we have a location down in Orem. They have full-fledged classes. That community is actually growing. They already had their 5K. Mm-hmm. I get the chance to go down there on Tuesdays and work with those guys too. So if you're in Utah County, go and check out our Utah County schedule and show up. There's an amazing team down there, same culture, and building something great.
Well, Richie, thank you for stopping by and sharing your story today. Before we end the podcast, Dr. Matt, your thoughts on Richie?
Great show. I appreciate you coming on. I mean, you've got a great personality, and I can definitely see why people benefit from being around you and working with you. And I mean, people like you are doing such good stuff in our community that before I did this podcast, I was completely unaware of, even as a mental health professional. And I appreciate you in that way so much. Every once in a while, because I've been doing this for 20 years, I've been a psychologist for 20 years, talked to a lot of different people about a lot of different things. And every once in a while, somebody will say something that either I haven't heard or I haven't heard it that way. And you did that today when you said it unlocked me as a person. And I was like, boom, that is a powerful experience. I don't think you could describe it better, being unlocked as a person. And I think anxiety, depression, and certainly addiction locks us up. And just one of the saddest things in life is, unfulfilled potential. And unfortunately, there are a lot of things like mental health, addiction, that lock us up. And what a beautiful way to describe that, being free from that and addiction and still struggling with mental health, but feeling so much better, and that potential being unlocked as an individual. For me, that's going to stick with me for a while. I appreciate you saying it that way.
The thing I loved about Richie is how authentic and genuine he is as a person.
Yeah.
We were walking in here and he's this gentle giant, and Josh, the producer's first thoughts were, "Are you a fighter?" Man, those are some big hands. And he goes, "No,
I'm a lover, not a fighter."
But what I loved about it is that your story is going to touch so many, because the highs that you've had and the lows that you have are so relatable to so many. And I hate to say that there's no typical addict, but I think there's people out there that are going to listen to Richie's story and go,
but there's similarities, and a person like you, Richie, is very relatable. And I think people are going to be like, wow, he speaks to me. So I have education, or your parents have love for you, but like you said, nobody can really kind of touch you like somebody who's been there. And I think you have a unique ability, you're in a unique position to help a lot of people.
The Utah recovery community is lucky to have a warrior like Richie on their side. So thank you very much.
What's one thing, you're over 4 years in sobriety, which is awesome. Congratulations. What's one thing you do daily or almost every day that helps you stay sober?
I look to serve somebody else. The one thing I've done perfect is I've been willing and kept trying, but every single day I look to be able to make somebody else's day. My goal is to be the light, spread the light, and shine the light, and allow someone else to have the permission to turn their own light on too.
Service. You've served us and our listeners today, so thank you.
Thank you very much.
You
and
guys.
thank you for stopping by and listening to another episode of Project Recovery, brought to you by our friends at Reprieve Recovery in Morgan, Utah. For more information, go check them out at reprieverc.com. And in case you forgot, Project Recovery is what?
It's a KSL podcast.
He's a light shining son of a gun.
Yeah.